guys, welcome to Inspire Sports Physio Podcast, where we make physio less intimidating and more fun, bringing educational bite-sized tips and tricks to you and conversations with world-class athletes and performers where you can learn from their mistakes so you don't have to. I'm Emily Mitchell, a physiotherapist and equestrian stunt performer. Today, we are talking about something that every athlete, weekend warrior and fitness fan fears, and that is injury. So here's the thing, it's a doomy gloomy subject, but if we don't start with some awareness, then how can we prevent them from happening? So you can't fix what you don't know, and today we're going to be counting down the top 5 common sports injuries that I see in clinic and what causes them and how you can reduce your risk. So that's going to be hopefully beneficial to you. As this is a new channel, I'm learning a lot of things, so I'd really appreciate if you give me some comments, feedback on how I can better these podcasts for you to make them more enjoyable. So yeah, I'd really appreciate that if you could. So without further ado, let's go crack into the top 5 injuries that we all don't want. So number 5 on the list is the dreaded ACL injury. So for those that don't have any clue how the human body works, ACL is anterior cruciate ligament. This ligament is found in the knee and it's a really important ligament that runs the whole show. The ACL is like a strong rope inside your knee and it stops your shin bone sliding too far forward and it keeps the twisty movements from turning into chaos. So if you have too much rotation, obviously that's then going to open up another can of worms for other things. So every time you run, jump, land, cut or pivot, the ACL calmly steps in and says, no, we're not going to do that today. But sports with sudden direction changes, that's where the ACL learns its reputation. So this is where the ACLs are most commonly seen when we start to add in the rotational sudden changes of direction, because sometimes it can get a bit surprised. And you don't even need any contact sport, which surprises people the most because the knee just goes, no, I can't do that anymore, can't support it. So contact injuries do happen, and that is when someone normally crashes into the side of the knee and forces a twist. Obviously, that's the worst case scenario, is having an ACL tear, but you can have strains too. This basically means that the ligament got overstretched or irritated, so that could be skiing, where you plant your foot into the ground and a twisting movement. You might have not had that much force. You might have been going very steadily on the green or blue slopes, and actually it's just strained the ligament and stretched and irritated it, but not actually torn it. So why does this injury happen so much? Twisting, pivoting, fatigue, poor landing mechanics, and previous injuries all play a role. Unfortunately, us females are also 2 to 8 times more likely to have a tear due to our anatomical and hormonal factors. So not just weakness, but biomechanics is just being unfair, basically. So prevention, how can we prevent these things happening? So obviously in the line of sport of something being high demanding, pivoting, twisting, we can prepare the body as much as we can through really good, obviously with coaches, personal trainers. Technique does play a role, but we need strong hamstrings, strong glutes, good technique, especially landing technique, lots of balance training and proprioception. Your body needs to know where it's putting every inch of its body when it lands, so that the muscles are all recruiting and firing at the right time to give your knee the stability it needs. And most importantly, listening to fatigue instead of pushing through it. A lot of the time, these ACL injuries happen through fatigue. So that is top injury number 5, which is your ACL. It's your knee's internal seatbelt. When it fails, you either retrain the system to cope beautifully without it, or you rebuild entirely. Knees are really clever little things, but they can be very dramatic structures. So do keep on top of your knees. Strong glutes, strong hamstrings, good landing technique, and balance training. So don't neglect your plyometrics. So that's number 1. Next we see is hamstring strains. I've been full to one of these before. They're not nice, and sometimes it can take a little bit to rehab. So the hamstrings are basically plural because there are 3 muscles running down the back of your thigh from your pelvis to the knee, and then job obviously is to bend the knee, help the drive of the hip, and act like a braking system. So this is the bit that not all people are aware of, is that braking system. So when you run, jump, or slow down, they help to protect the knee by stopping the shin from sliding forward. Does this sound familiar? Yes, it does, because it's basically helping the ACL, which is why I mentioned earlier that these are really important to train because they're underrated. So definitely hamstring training is far by neglected, and it should definitely be concentrated on more. So of these 3 hamstrings, we have the bicep femoris. This is the outer hamstring, and it's the most commonly strained. It does work the hardest during the sprinting and the fast direction changes, and it also has the control of both the speed and the rotation, which is why it's a little bit more vulnerable than the other 2. So like I mentioned, they happen normally during this braking system. So they are working whilst they're lengthening. So during that high speed running, when the leg swings forward, the hamstrings are trying to slow down that leg from excessively going out through its range. So that is eccentric control. So this is also where, again, fatigue, previous injuries, or poor loading control all increase the risk. So basically, in short, hamstrings are your knee's bodyguards, and the outer one is the most likely one to pull a sick day off if it's pushed too hard. So why does this happen? Apart from what I've already mentioned, inadequate warm-ups are often the culprit. So research does show that up to 30% of athletes experience a hamstring strain each season. That's a little bit scary. So don't neglect your warm-ups, making sure you've got the strength as well as the endurance, because we don't want the fatiguing and giving way on you. So making sure that you do some dynamic warm-ups. You can check out my YouTube channel. There's a quick 5-minute warm-up on there. That's a really good warm-up just for if you have literally no time to spare. That is just going to give you the best chance with the limited time available. Obviously, if you can do more comprehensive warm-ups. Skill primers, it's not to make you sweat like a bucket of water. They are there to warm up the muscles and get them prepared for the task or job that you're wanting to do. Lots of eccentric strengthening as well. So like I mentioned, that eccentric, so through lengthening of the muscle. So for those that don't know what eccentric is, if you imagine a bicep curl, that's the easiest one to explain. So bicep curls, you're pulling the weight. So you've got the weight in your hand, you're pulling that weight all the way up to your chin. That's concentric, we're shortening the muscle fibers. Eccentric is the opposite way round. So that lengthening, that weight is going all the way back down to the floor. That is what eccentric is. So we want to do lots of eccentric training of the hamstrings. So that's something like Nordic hamstring curls. They're often a fan favorite, so definitely do some of those. And as well, flexibility and mobility. So tight muscles, they're more likely to snap. So making sure that you can get through range. If your sport or job or task requires lots of mobility and you don't have it, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, I need to do that quickly, and you're fatigued, well, bit of a recipe for disaster. So making sure you've got strength and mobility. Also, if you are doing the strength training, you'll often find that you end up getting more mobility because you end up adding more muscle fibers into that muscle unit. So then it gives you more flexibility and mobility too. So hamstrings are like elastic bands. If you pull too hard too fast without warming them up, they're going to snap. So treat them like gold and stretch them carefully. So that's hamstrings. Number 3. What is number 3? Well, that is ankle sprains. If you've ever twisted your ankle, I literally did mine a few weeks ago. You know, it's a mixture of pain, swelling, and a very convincing excuse to sit on the sidelines because it really is sore. Why do these happen? So most ankle sprains are due to inversion injuries. So your toes normally pushing off from the ground and then the toes turn in, and that's your inversion injury. So sports like basketball, trial running on rocks, uneven ground, and football are common culprits for these. Previous sprains increase your risk of reoccurrence, just the way that everything's been affected, the tissues, the proprioception, and if you don't retrain these then and give the ankle the support it needs, then it just puts you more and more risk. So how can we prevent these from happening? We can strengthen the peroneal muscles, which are on the outside of your shin. You can do these with resistance bands. We want to also do balance training, so getting on the wobble board, single leg stands. Your body needs to be firing those muscles harder than what you will be doing whilst you're in the game. So making sure that you have proper stability in your ankle. And then another thing you can do is wearing proper footwear, so shoes that with support for your sport. So think of your ankle like a suspension bridge, strong cables, which are the muscles, and support prevents the collapse. So if we have weak support, then the bridge might wobble and it might snap. Especially, it's always happening at the worst possible moment. So keep them strong, give them a lot of attention, because your feet affect the whole kinetic chain all the way upwards. So do definitely keep on top of your feeties. And then number 4 we have, which is number 2 of most common injuries we see, is the rotator cuff injuries. So for those that don't know what the rotator cuff are, it's a group of 4 muscles in the shoulder. They're deep and they are important for the stability of your shoulder. And they are very small but mighty muscles, and they're really important for stabilizing your shoulder. The most common in overhead sports like tennis, baseball, swimming, and even CrossFit. So why does this happen? It happens because of repetitive overhead motions, poor technique, or weak stabilizers, which obviously can then lead to tears, tendinopathy, or impingement if the glenohumeral joint is being then compromised and not in a great position. So studies do suggest that up to 30% of adult athletes over 25 have some degree of rotator cuff pathology. Not great statistics, but it is also somewhere another body part that often gets neglected. Especially when you think that you're doing it in the sport. You don't often think, I need to train it because I'm always putting the ball into the hoop, so why do I need to train arms? But it isn't important, especially the posterior chain training. That was a bit of a mouthful. So how can we prevent these from happening? So we can strengthen them rotator cuff muscles and the scapular stabilizers, because your shoulder does also work with your scapula. They're basically a team. Focus on shoulder mobility and proper technique. Obviously, posture also has a role in your day-to-day life. If you're constantly on your phone, slumping forward, and then you're driving forward in that flexed, adducted position, then you might sleep in the same position, then you might just subconsciously fall. So yeah, basically, if you've got a continual day of where you're putting your shoulder in a poor alignment, and then on top of that, you're doing repetitive overhead movements, it's a little bit no wonder that you're poking the bear. It's going to get irritable. So do have that awareness of your posture as well. And then gradual load progression. So don't go from 0 to hero overnight. It doesn't work. Shoulders hate surprises. They want everything nice and slow and gradual. So really do introduce shoulder strengthening rehab slowly and build up that load tissue tolerance. So that is the shoulder rotator cuff injuries. And then our final number, what do we see mostly? Well, I'm not sure if you've probably already guessed. I'm already in that club, and that is lower back pain. The ultimate equalizer, professional athletes, weekend warriors, and fitness newbies are all alike and all at risk of lower back pain. So why does it happen? It often happens because of weak core, poor lifting mechanics, repetitive loading, and again, another common denominator here is fatigue. They all can lead to lower back pain, and surprisingly, the studies are suggesting that up to 80% of adults experience lower back pain at some point. So what can we do to prevent lower back pain? So for me, I know with my previous spinal injuries, I have my own routine. It's not saying that's the right routine, but I know I have to do at least a 10-minute core routine every single day just to keep my deep core strong. So core strengthening is a really important element of a healthy spine. And so for things this, you could simply just be thinking planks, dead bugs, anti-rotation exercises, put your favourite song on. I've got a friend in the UK and I love what he does, and he literally puts his favourite song on and does a plank for the whole thing. As he's doing it, he'll make it a little bit more spicy by adding some hip dips. He might do some plank pikes. So they're really, really great. Obviously, there's movement awareness, so trying to maintain a neutral spine during your lifts, your running, even stretching. So it's more having an awareness of where you're putting your spine, excessive movements, and thinking, okay, do I need to control this movement? And as well, sleep, hydration, and mobility exercises. So as we get older, we start to reduce our mobility and we struggle to put our shoes and socks on. Well, if you was training that every single day and you was doing that movement, at least when you get a little bit older and a bit more arthritic and stiff, at least it's not going to be such a shock because you've been training that range of movement on a regular basis. It won't just come out the blue. So I hope from this you have some key takeaway messages. If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend, and follow me on other social media platforms at Inspire Sports Physio. Send me DMs of what you'd like to hear or what you'd like to see. Also on my YouTube channel, there's some good fun workouts to get you going, get you strong and resilient.